What up, nerds? Welcome to another Nordic episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for this evening. This is episode number 368, recorded Sunday, April 24th, 2022. Tonight, we're talking about the latest from Robert Eggers. It is The Northman. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. How do?
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Sexy.
We ready to get some fucking Nordic shit going here today?
Let's go berserk.
All right. Got my techno Viking background. I'm good to go. I'm good to go for this one.
I can't wait to talk about it. Next up, we got our boy Soju calling in from South Korea. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy, Allfather Stains. Fight with power of the Raven. Caw-caw.
Caw-caw. Caw-caw.
I don't know about you,
Not
boys.
the crow?
but I think I might do a extra sit-up or two today.
That's all it takes is
I think I might just lean into the opposite forever.
Yeah.
No, give me 2 or 3 weeks and I'll be up to pace for the old Northman.
You just gotta do, it's like one sit up per peck, right? Or per pack.
Maybe Eggers will let me be in the Northman deuce.
The Northmen. Skarsgård's neck muscles are insane. Absolutely insane.
Well,
yeah, Bob, you do an extra sit-up or two, you'll get there.
You'll get trapped.
yeah, it's just
all of a sudden.
It's just the 2 sit-ups you've been dodging all these years.
Last but not least, making his triumphant return to the show. It's the second time on our show. We got the Master of Swords sitting in with us. Welcome back, Matt.
Ooh! Howdy doody, guys. How y'all doing?
Very good. Happy to have you, man.
I'm excited. There's no space vampires in this movie, but there's some Valkyries, and that's close enough for me.
Close enough.
All right. I mean, we've just established that Skarsgård is hot as fuck in this movie, so you got plenty of options, my friend.
Randy's rocking a huge wetty right now.
A wetty, goddamn. You don't get to goddamn what I say anymore. That's a lot.
Matt, thanks for sitting in with us, man. You were on our Green Knight episode last year, and we're excited to talk about the Green Knight with you because we thought there was going to be a whole bunch of sword fights, and it turns out there was almost none in that movie. But that's not the same here. There's plenty of sword fighting in this movie.
No, they do a good job. There's a one-on-one fight. There's a big group fight. There's a bunch of little assassination fights. So yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, man. And you, so you're sort of an authority on sword fighting. You run a sword school yourself. You want to tell people about it?
I manage Bowl City Longsword here in Jacksonville, Florida. We focus on the late Renaissance or the early Renaissance, late medieval. So this stuff is about 500 years before us. But sword fighting is sword fighting. You have 2 arms, 2 elbows, 2 knees. So it all pretty much works the same.
Sweet deal. Well, thanks for sitting in with us, man. We look forward to hearing your expertise about how to murder people with sharp things.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Likewise. Before we get into the review, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Here is your final reminder. We have our May poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this May. The theme for May is Friday the 13th, and the movies to vote between are Friday the 13th, Part 2, Jason X, and Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh, Bob, for the last time, how are those numbers looking?
The last time. Dude, we are tied up. Jason X and Freddy v. Jason.
Wow.
Neck and neck.
Uh-oh. Those 2 people who voted for Jason Deuce are going to have to switch it up.
Yeah, and they're going to
switch it evenly.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a double feature. No, I'm not.
We'll just watch the first half of Jason X and then the second half of Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, yeah, it'll line up perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is your last week. Get your votes in. Make sure you do so, and hopefully we will have a victor come May 1st. In other Patreon news, we're going to be dropping a brand new mini cast this Friday. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole backlog of Patreon exclusive episodes. The one we're dropping this Friday is on a new docu-series on Netflix called Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes. Juice, you're talking about this one.
Sounds like a fun romp.
Right?
Oh, yeah. This is me. And this just dropped like on the 20th, I think. So it is fresh out the oven. And I haven't really looked into like who handles all these kind of docuseries because they all have like little different names and subtitles. But this one shares the name like Conversations with the Killer with one that came out in 2019 that focused on Ted Bundy, which is kind of like the first docuseries I remember really getting into from Netflix because it was just really interesting to have those tapes of Ted Bundy and his thoughts and like everyone close around him, like his lawyers and what everybody thought and stuff. He ended up representing himself, but you get the idea. But so it was interesting to revisit that now 3 years later with John Wayne Gacy and take like a really deep dive. It's 3 episodes. They handle it pretty well from, his past to the investigation that ultimately got him caught, who was on that. They speak with his lawyers and stuff. So it was interesting. And then there's a lot of just conversations that he is having with his lawyer during his trial, I think, and that's the tapes that they're releasing. And man, it's really dark and messed up stuff, of course, but it's super interesting for sure.
Is that son of a bitch still alive?
No, he died in 94. Yeah. He got the death penalty. Spoiler.
I watched the first episode of this, and it was very interesting because you can tell when John Bundy's full of shit and when he's not, or not
John Bundy.
Whoa, the Voltron of serial killers.
Gacy. John
Wayne Gacy. Like when he's talking to his lawyers, you can tell like when he's just stroking his own ego and when he's actually trying to be serious.
Yeah, he's a scary guy, actually. He is the one, like, listening to him talk, he would go back and forth between like bragging up. He like just assumed he was going to get off despite the fact to admitting to like 33 murders in intimate detail and would like brag about it. Like, I'm going to get those guys. I'm like, he had like no remorse. It's crazy, scary. He's fucked up, dude.
Yeah,
you're telling me that the clown guy with children under his
they show pictures of his house. That shit is so fucked.
The scariest thing is that he had a tiki bar.
Dude, he had his own tiki bar.
That's a real haunted hideaway.
Red flags.
Yeah. His house looked a lot like Bob's. Interesting. Had that long
because of the implication.
It had a hallway. The way he painted it was fucking weird, though. It's like real zigzaggy. Anyone? Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch it too, Bob?
I did watch it. Yeah, that shit was wild. He did a lot of like overtly positive stuff for the community, which I guess was for a cover. I don't know. It's wild. Watch it and then listen to Justin's thoughts.
We're just reviewing this now.
I know. We're just check it out this Friday on Patreon. What else we got going on? Big thanks to everybody that came out this past Friday, the 22nd, for our meetup at Rain Dogs in Jacksonville. It was a lot of fun. Matt, you were there. People were just drinking beer, shooting the shit, talking about horror movies. We had the projector rolling. The Easy Cheese came out.
Yeah. I saw a lot of grown men get fed Easy Cheese by other grown men. It was a great night.
It was great.
Ooh, that sounds like a hot Friday night. No women involved in that situation?
We told them to go away.
Yeah.
They have too much etiquette.
Too much self-respect,
What?
Yeah, one of those things.
Just one of those things.
It was a solid turnout, and big thanks to everybody who was able to make it. I'm sure we'll do something like that in the near future. If you aren't able to make it, don't worry, it won't be the last time.
Bob, I have a very important question for you.
Okay, yeah.
How many free blues did you receive at this meetup? This swap meet.
I received 0 free blues. Actually, I did get a free DVD courtesy of Matt.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Matt, you're feeding this man's addiction.
Matt was the.
Hopefully, it was a homemade pornographic film. Otherwise, it's just untoward.
That's what you hope for.
I just
It's-
cut a
well,
random minute
otherwise
in,
somebody's just
and you don't
greasing
know
the
when it's gonna
wheels.
show up.
You had a what?
I put a random minute of self pornography in the middle of that movie somewhere.
Hidden somewhere.
Man, this movie changed tone quick.
It's just you naked with a sword. Sweet.
This is not how I remembered Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
I just don't remember this.
Matt was our straight chilling Santa Claus. He brought all kinds of gifts and was just handing them out to people. So big thanks.
That's dope.
Oh, you're welcome.
I heard rumor that you brought a big hefty portion of
Rigatoni.
with you.
I definitely did. The rigatoni actually cost more than the DVDs did.
Well, I mean, you got to have priorities, I suppose.
I was happy to see so many people bring in rigatoni. That show was cracking me out. Or maybe it was just one box of rigatoni everybody was holding. But
Matt brought a case of rigatoni is what happened.
holy shit. Around
here, that means big money.
That's perfect, Matt. Killing him.
Big money. So yeah, thanks again, everybody who was able to make it. In other news, we just dropped a brand new episode of Let's Get Physical Media. Mikey and I are talking about our March pickups. So if you are interested in collecting Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, things of that nature, most of which we talk about are horror movies, but not all, check out Let's Get Physical Media everywhere you get your podcasts. Man, I got so much to talk about. This is the last week for our raffle. If you want to join in our Straight Chilling raffle, all you got to do is leave us a 5-star rating and a nice little review on iTunes, and you will automatically be entered. We're going to draw the winner the first week of May. If you've already done that, don't worry about it. You're already entered into the raffle. We'll be sending off like a Straight Chilling prize package with a bunch of movies and horror-related stuff. So make sure you get that done this week. And finally, Joe Bob Briggs is back. That means our watch parties are also returning this Friday, April 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joe Bob's doing his double feature. This is going to be his 100th movie he's talked about on Shudder. And we're going to do a watch party like always on Zoom. If you want to join in on the fun, I'll post a link to do so on all of our social media outlets just before showtime. So keep an eye on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that shit. And you'll click that link once I post it and you'll bounce on over to our Zoom watch party.
Damn, so does that mean this is like episode 50 he's done for Shudder?
Yeah, I guess
Because
so.
he usually covers 2.
Usually, but he does like Christmas specials and Thanksgiving specials where sometimes he'll do like 4 movies, and the first marathon he did had 13 movies, so it's like kind of
Oh, God. Okay.
all over the place a little bit. Yeah.
13 movies?
Well, that's when it was
was a big
supposed to legitimately be the last.
Is last,
drive-in.
yeah.
Yeah, but it blew up, so they're like, money, do more.
Wait a minute. There's money over here.
Yeah, we found some money. Let's do this again and again. So yeah, check that out this Friday, the 29th. That is all I got. You guys have anything you want to add?
I'm
Not
clean,
at
baby.
all.
Squeaky clean.
This house is clean.
All right, we're jumping into the main event. We're talking about the Northman, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right, The Northman, brand new movie dropped last week. This is the latest from Robert Eggers, his third feature film. It was written by Robert Eggers and Sean, stars Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, so many other folks. This is a baller-ass cast. The plot synopsis brought to us by IMDb is as follows. The Northman is an action-filled epic that follows a young Viking prince on his quest to avenge his father's murder. First-time watch for all of us, obviously. Would you recommend people check this out? Matt, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so I would say this movie's very pretty, and I would lean towards you should go see it in a theater.
Okay.
I don't know what the rewatchability on it's going to be though, so I'd go out and see it now, and then maybe revisit it in like 10, 15 years.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay.
It's very prescriptive.
Randy, what about you?
I mean, I largely agree with that. I think, like, if you're a theater going type, if you like being in the theater for movies, this one certainly benefits from a big screen. you want to take in as much of that screen as you can, because it surely is a delight to the senses, as we say. I wouldn't, I longevity wise, like repeat watch, I don't know about that either, but for a single watch, certainly I think it's only going to do. Like The Lighthouse was the same sort of thing, where it was just so beautiful. You're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice, in my opinion, by watching it on a smaller screen. All right, Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I would recommend people check this out. Even like comparing it to the Lighthouse was very like aesthetically interesting. But I mean, this has the spectacle behind it as well. Not only is it beautiful to look at, but I mean, it gives you the spectacle as well. So, I mean, I think for a movie that's not a Marvel movie or anything like that, then this is one that kind of deserves that kind of theater watch because of the giant landscapes, the action that you're kind of getting, and it's just beautiful in its cinematography in general. So yeah, I would recommend. Bob, how do you feel?
Sounds like a solid recommendation from all of us. Yeah, definitely worth watching, especially if you're into the Robert Eggers style of like extreme attention to detail and like historic accuracy, I guess, or he's obviously like taking some liberties here and there, but he does a good job with this, just like he did with The Lighthouse and the Witch. So yeah, check it out on the big screen before it leaves. Yeah, solid recommendation from all of us. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning and get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right, Bob, do you have a plot synopsis for this?
I do, and I'm probably going to mispronounce a lot of names. So
What?
Sorry about
Someone
that.
was waiting for me to do that. I'm glad that you're going to burst that bubble.
I will, for sure. Over
Someone
and over
on
again.
our Slack was anticipating that.
Flourish says.
Pretty close to one of the names, anyways. Yeah, I got it. It's fairly short. Let me blast through this real quick. Movie starts off in AD 895. King Arvandil returns home from his overseas battle to be reunited with his queen Gudrun and his son Prince Amleth. The next morning, Amleth's uncle Fjornar ambushes the king, killing him and taking queen. Amleth escapes, swearing to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill Fjornar. Amleth is then found by a group of Vikings. He is raised as a berserker. Amleth encounters a seeress who prophesizes he will soon take his revenge. She also informs him that Fjornar was overthrown by Harold of Norway and now lives in exile in Iceland. Are you just laughing at my horrific pronunciation?
Dude.
Is that what's happening?
I can't remember our lead's name off the top of my head, but I'm pretty confident it's not Omelet.
I think it's Amleth.
Amleth?
I think it's Amleth.
Did I say omelet? Omelet?
You said Omelet.
You got to crack a few eggs to make a
sometimes,
Viking. All right?
when there's a hostile Viking takeover, sometimes you got to break a few eggs.
Yeah, you got to do it. Well, our boy Omelet then boards a boat heading for Iceland, pretending to be a slave. Aboard the ship, he meets Olga, who claims to be a sorceress, and upon arrival, they are put to work by Fjornar, who is now married to Queen Gudrun. She's also born him a son by the name of Gunnar. One night, Omelet encounters a he-witch who tells him where to find a special sword. Omelet retrieves it and hides it for later. The following day, Omelet has to play a deadly game of Knatlicker, in which Gunnar runs onto the field and is saved by Omelet. Omelet and Olga then make love and vow to work together to overthrow Fjornar. Over the next several nights, Omelet kills several of Fjornar's men. Olga mixes psychedelic mushrooms into their food, allowing Omelet to sneak into the king's chambers and reveal his identity to his mother. She claims she begged Fjornar to kill his father and that his conception was the result of a rape. She also tries to seduce her son. Omelet is enraged and kills Fjornar's oldest son in his sleep and steals his heart. Fjornar begins killing the slaves, resulting in Omelet returning to save Olga. Amleth is then captured and severely beaten. He is freed by a flock of ravens and saved by Olga. The two escape by ship, and Amleth realizes Olga's pregnant with twins. He chooses to return to Iceland to kill Fjordur, as his children will never be safe as long as he is alive. Back at the farm, Amleth kills several men, frees the slaves, and in an act of self-defense, kills his mother and Gunnar as well. Fjordur finds the bodies and tells Amleth to meet him at the gates of hell, the volcano Hekla. The two engage in a sword fight via Holmgang. Amleth decapitates Fjordur and is simultaneously stabbed in the chest. The two die, and we see Amleth carried to Valhalla. Roll credits. Nailed it. I fucking nailed it.
My boy Amleth.
That's my boy.
Amleth.
Hey, you know what? This pronunciation service says you're right.
I love how you just picked that bump up real quick.
On the fly.
Yeah.
On the fly.
Thank you, forvo.com/word/omelet.
Nailed it.
We appreciate you.
Matt, did I say the name correctly? Do you know?
Oh no, it's Amleth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did not nail it. Did not nail it. So my understanding is this is based on an actual myth, like Nordic myth. Is that? Do you know like the tale?
Yeah. So it was. This is actually the tale that Hamlet's based off of.
Right. I knew that, but I didn't know if there were any like nuances to the original story.
So in the original, he doesn't leave and become like a berserker and then sneak back as a slave. In the original, when they kill his father, he just pretends to go mad and kind of just hangs out and shits on himself for like 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't bathe. He just rolls around in the mud.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then eventually exacts his revenge.
Yeah, so everyone thinks he's crazy and they put their guard down. And then one day he just stands up and he's like, "No, bro, I ain't crazy."
Damn. Rolling around in your
Yeah,
but
but that's
like you're kind of crazy, I think.
I mean, that's a tough respect hill to climb back up.
Yeah. And now I'm your king, bitch. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And now you're kidding.
I have seen you shit in your own hand, sir.
I don't know if I'm bending the knee to old shit hand. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know.
Oh, man.
Bob, you gonna do the sit-ups to overthrow him? I mean, come on. Let's be honest here.
It's a real one-punch man situation. You just got to do a few sit-ups every day, and you'll be all set.
Can we call them deuce-ups? It's just two and done. You know?
As long as every time you go down, you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said the style of sword fighting you focus on was 500 years after this?
So the earliest fighting sword manual that we have is written around 1300.
Okay.
But before that, we haven't found any surviving manual from before that.
Okay.
They usually wrote stuff on vellum, which is the skin of a sheep's belly.
Okay.
And everything was handwritten. So if I made a copy, it was super expensive because you have to have like however many pages, that's how many sheep you have to have. And then if I want to make another copy, I have to have that many more sheep and so on and so on. So until we started making paper in the printing press, a book was a super expensive item to have. And but the earliest source we have is a sword and buckler source, and the buckler is very similar to their shields. It's a center grip shield. It's just very much smaller.
Okay. And
so the way they fight is very similar to that very first source we have.
Okay, cool.
That's cool, man.
Did I know like we talked a little bit about like the portrayal of sword fights in like a Game of Thrones and shit like that, and how it's like a little bit exaggerated or whatever. Do you think the way it's portrayed in this movie is fairly accurate to how it would have been?
No, it's very exaggerated in this film.
Very exaggerated as well.
So,
Robert,
come on, Rob.
Fighting on stage and on film, and then fighting in real life, they're actually polar opposites. Because if I fight on stage, I want everyone to see my movement, and I don't want to hurt my acting partner. While in real life, I don't want you to see my movement, and I do want to hurt my opponent.
Exact opposite.
So they're the exact opposite. Okay. So anytime they're doing these real big moves in an actual dueling match, they would be very small.
Okay. All in the wrist.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's that's kind of an interesting thing to go against some of the things that we come to expect from Robert Eggers. And I think that's a good segue into that, because Robert Eggers up until this point has done much smaller scale. He's always doing these timepieces, but they're all much smaller scale as far as the cast, as far as the setting, the general story goes. They're a lot more kind of like mind driven, psychedelic kind of like, thought processes that are going on. This one is more of a general kind of like, cerebral. Yeah. This one is more, like of a general tale. There's a much bigger cast. It's stacked to like crazy, but also like you have a lot more settings than he normally deals with. And so I wonder if the whole Robert Eggers idea is like this historically accurate kind of situations, but then you get yourself into a situation where in order to make a good film, he's also like a student of film. You have to have these exaggerated movements that have nothing to do with actual sword fight. Well, then how does that start to affect his product,
It also comes from like just the movie making in general. Cause like, so say you're Adam Skarsgård and I'm a stunt double and I accidentally clock you in the head. Well, we just lost a day of shooting.
Yeah.
And your face is messed up. So who knows what that entails. So we have to keep the talent safe at all costs.
Yeah. I'm the talent. Keep me safe.
Well, I don't know if maybe this is kind of like, maybe this is putting it out there too early, but to speak to that, Justin, what you were bringing up, Eggers is kind of known for being anachronistically true to source. And I think that story wise, he is here from what, I would assume so based on what I've seen him from his other work. And that is far more of like a filmmaking technique. And I know from an interview with him that I read from, I think LA Weekly or LA Times, something like that. I don't know, something out of SoCal. He did an interview and he was saying that this was his attempt to make an entertaining film rather than a small or psychedelic or cerebral or like, nuance driven film. This is I know it definitely is, but it's this is the reason I think that he's doing these big action sequences in a style that we recognize as being like for screen swordplay rather than being anachronistic, is because that is his ultimate goal in this particular movie.
I see.
Which I can kind of like that made a lot of sense to me when I read that, because I don't know about you guys, but with this movie, I definitely came out of it thinking, that was a lot more of a just straightforward film than we have seen Eggers make, period. Like this was
very much so.
The other movie is way less insular, way less, even just in pure scope, it is so much bigger. So I was like interested to see like, okay, so what was the driving force for that? And it was just like, he wanted to bring his style, his sort of like uncompromising, like visually, feast for the eyes sort of look to a classic Norse tale and give it, some bombast to make it like this exciting, give it all the sort of like the thing that he does with The Witch and The Lighthouse is he kind of like gives credence to things that we would kind of feel comfortable calling silly and like making light of in most contexts. Like when Thor was introduced and people made jokes about like, oh, he's wearing his mother's drapes. So like, and like, oh, Shakespearean actor and all these like little one-liners at his expense, because it's like, as like modern people, we kind of like look at these things and we're like, yeah, we're past that. But in order to immerse you, he takes them deadly serious. So he's taking this Norse myth deadly serious for how it would be interpreted by the minds. I would, or at least I think what he would like, how people would take it if they were really, really like invested in it as a true story. And he wants to invest us in that way. So that's just my whole spiel.
I would also say, as far as Robert Eggers goes, this is his most straightforward script. If you take all the style out of the movie and just step back with the script, this is just 80 or a 70s revenge movie. This is Dirty Harry or Death Wish, and he just put his art style on top of a very basic script and idea and plot. Unlike the witch
Definitely.
in the lighthouse, which has a twist at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has multiple readings. Like there's ways you can read this movie that are like different from what you like face value, but face value is really face value in this movie as opposed to those others.
Yeah. And that's what was interesting for me, because I was really thinking about this as a Robert Eggers film, and I was like, okay, what can we find here that stays true to what we've seen so far, and what's kind of different in the way of like script and stuff like that. And one thing that is similar, but I don't see necessarily a lot of people discussing yet so far, is, I mean, he still takes the idea, like we have the seer in here, you know, we had this intro speaking to Odin, this mythical sword, that battle where he has, you know, down in the ship to get the sword. So where he's still kind of taking these mythological aspects, you know, in the witch, it's mostly just based on, you know, the witch, but in the lighthouse, it's more nautical. You have a mermaid, something going on in the lighthouse that, you know, people speculate about. So he's still kind of doing that here, but it's with a kind of religion or mythology that the general audience isn't going to be as familiar with. Like, we all know about witches, you know, based on our personal history as Americans and everything like that, and pop culture. Same thing with kind of mermaids in general. But now we're kind of going into this territory where it's still this mythology, but even the idea of the Vikings and stuff like that, it's got this mythological feel to us. So separating the history and the mythology is a lot harder kind of in this movie, but it's still there, you know, like the seer and all those things I mentioned before. Yeah, it's still there.
They definitely still take the mythology as truth. And that's what was so interesting about The Witch. The first time you see that is you're not entirely clear of that throughout. All you know is the characters are taking it as truth, and it feels true because they are portraying it so well. But in this movie, from the jump, yeah, Odin is real. You know, these people are having visions. You know, there's a sword that can only be pulled unsheathed on certain at night and by the mouth of gates of hell. Those things are all true. They the internal logic of this movie is very straightforward, and they're Norse they're mythological things that you're right. Like, we don't have a pre-existing knowledge of that, so like there's no like mystery to that, and that there was in The Witch, where it's like, wait, so is this really happening? It kind of seems like it might be happening, but is it happening? How did that happen if it wasn't this? Like, all those things, you know, it's just right from the jump. You know that this is mythology is real, and we don't know the mythology. So that is the journey as Americans that we kind of go on here, or at least as, you know, uncultured Americans, I guess.
See, I think Eggers has started training me, because after I watched The Witch, I was super excited about all that stuff, and I went out and I looked it all up, and I did some like homework and studying after the movie, and then the same thing with The Lighthouse. So for this movie, I decided to do that stuff beforehand. So like, about a month ago, I took a great courses on Viking history and a great courses on Norse mythology.
Wow.
Damn.
And I was wondering if y'all did anything like that, where you tried to like get the upper hand on it.
No.
Well,
no.
I read Wikipedia.
You think too much of us, sir.
Well, I did take some time to just generally look at, you know, some of the names that are mentioned in here, like Freya and stuff like that. And also, I was going to bring this up. Matt, you have watched the show Vikings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about this like in the Slack in general, like who had kind of watched that show a little bit. And that's kind of a good point, though. That's the reason I kind of knew the context and a little bit more of the background of Bjork's character of the seer, you know, and what role that played amongst, you know, Vikings of the time. And so I was like, okay, I have a little bit more context of who this person is and what they're supposed to represent. But without that, you would just be like, here's a crazy character that just shows up, has got a crazy costume on, disappears. We don't really know the context of that. And so I think Robert Eggers, like, in order to enjoy it fully, you almost kind of have to do some of that work, I think.
I don't think you necessarily have to, especially not with this movie, because this movie is so like built on spectacle the way the others aren't, that I think that it holds its own without. But I think you get the most out of it by probably by doing that. For me, like, I didn't have that connection by any means. I didn't watch Vikings. I don't know a thing about Norse mythology that is not covered in comic books, like, so, and even that's pretty shaky for me. So, but when I was watching this, I didn't know this was a proto Hamlet. I had no idea that that's what this story was going to be, or that existed before Shakespeare. So, but I started not immediately, but like probably about, midway through, I was like, okay, I know this. I know the story. I know exactly what's going on here. It's just the names and places have been changed to protect the innocent, so to speak. So, I think that in that way I engaged with that story. I wonder what it would be like to not have even that connection fire for you. Like, I don't know. Bob, how did you make those connections at all?
I knew going in to the movie, so like I didn't have to put it together myself. Okay. I listened to like a short interview with Robert Eggers, and he spilled the beans. And I was like, oh, okay. And he did say like he intentionally wanted to make a story that was insanely familiar to people to, I guess, just like make the subject matter more accessible. And it just so happens that this story that we've all seen a million times was based in like Norse mythology. So like, it's true to the subject matter, and it just kind of worked out that way. I wanted to ask you, Matt, the sword that they talk about in this movie, was that anything that you learned about in the courses that you were taking? Like, is that a true thing?
No, so this story actually didn't come up in that mythology book because I believe he is a real person. I believe his sons. I believe all this actually took place in Denmark, and they were in Denmark at the beginning of the movie, and then she goes back to Denmark when he abandons her at the end of the movie. So so they have the prose Edda, I believe that's how you say it, Edda, and they have all their tales are written in poem form, and then a gentleman named Snorri in Iceland wrote it all down as prose. And if you know anything about Norse mythology, that's probably people looking at that source and rewriting it for us. Okay. And so if it's not in there, it's not considered like mainstream.
Somebody just added to it, basically. Then,
well, it was just probably a smaller story from another source.
Okay. Gotcha.
Interesting.
That whole, I was going to say that was one of my favorite sequences of the movie, though. Is like when he does finally get down into that, I guess, ship that like ran up on land and has to fight this corpse to get his sword from him, and like the moonlight sort of kills. That's
actually a crypt. That's a burial crypt.
Oh, really?
They would, if you were a king or someone wealthy or a notable, they would put you in a ship with a bunch of treasure. That I believe there was the scene where they were burying the one, the son. Yeah. They were getting that girl drunk, and they killed her to bury her with him. Okay, so she could be with him forever. Even though
I thought they were shipping him off.
She didn't seem all about it at all. No, I felt very bad for her.
Yeah.
But so that scene is actually there was an Arab man who traveled up into Rus, which Rus just means Viking. So Russia just means Vikings. So Scandinavian people came down to Russia and took all that over. That's how Russia got its name. And a person, I believe a follower of Islam went up there and just traveled around and took notes about his travels, and he saw an actual burial that took place like that. And that's how we know how they buried people, is that one guy wrote that down, and that's really crazy. Our only source for that.
Damn.
So if you ever watch the movie The 13th Warrior, they show them burning, they do a ship burning burial, and the girl says the exact same thing because that's the only source we have. So if you watch that movie when they kill that girl, and you watch this movie when they kill the girl in this movie, their lines are exactly the same because those are the only lines we know historically.
That's badass.
That's so interesting.
I need to take A grade courses, apparently.
Well, that's the one thing that's another contextual thing that I learned from Vikings, because, they would send servants with you like in the afterlife. And sometimes they would say like who kind of volunteers or whatever, because they wanted people to go willing. And they would like, if anyone volunteered, they would like do you up real big, like give you a feast that day, get you laid if you wanted, like get you drunk or whatever. But then they kill you and they put you in the ship and either burn you alongside or whatever. And so when that was happening with that girl, I was like, oh, I actually know what's going on here. But again, I was like, how much of this are just regular viewers like completely oblivious to, just because it's not something we're familiar with?
Well, I think
I can tell you that part. Oh, sorry.
Well, I think this movie did a really good job of explaining or showing how shitty medieval slavery was.
Yeah.
Because that was the Vikings' main source of income. So the word Viking, it just means pirating. They're not Vikings. Viking's a verb. So you would go a Viking and you would do a raid, and of course you would steal all the gold and valuables and stuff, but the real moneymaker was the people. So you would steal the people and take them somewhere else and sell them. You would usually take them to Spain and sell them to the Muslims, or take them to Turkey and sell them to the Muslims.
Damn.
So like, there were slaves everywhere in medieval Scandinavia.
Boy, yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty brutally depicted in this. I as far as like, you know, Justin, you were saying that like what it would be like to not know the context of what was happening. I'll tell you two things about that scene. One is that I did not know that girl was going to get killed until she was gutted in the background. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, that girl just had to fucking sing. And now she is dead. And that kind of fucked me up. And then as I was watching it, I thought that they were going, I mean, because the cultural idea of a Viking funeral in America anyway, or at least to my knowledge, the pop knowledge, I guess is not true, is the idea of shipping somebody off in a ship on water and then firing a flaming arrow and burning it. Is that not a real thing?
No, that's a real thing. It
is, yeah.
It just depends on where you're located. If you're
Do you have access to water? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that could have been happening there. But I didn't see them like bury it in that particular scene. Did they show that? Or
for the princess ship, I didn't see either. But when he got the magic sword, that was a mound. That was a ship they had buried, and he climbed in the top of the mound.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense that it could go either way. Okay. I was thinking, did I miss something? Did they bury this also on camera and I just missed it? But anyway. Okay, that's fucking great context. And this is the thing that I like. It kind of forces you to learn something when Robert Eggers makes a film, certainly based in, you know, some past culture. It forces you to sort of like reckon like, oh, is that how that was? Really? Like, and in this movie, I guess it's a little bit less Slavish to that, devoted to that idea. But it does, you know, it takes the mythology portion very seriously, it seems like.
I actually think it was kind of a hindrance in this movie because, like Randy, earlier you said this was very much a movie of spectacle. And I feel like he made a list of cool Viking shit he wanted to put in this movie. And then was just like, well, where am I going to put it? And he just started ramming it in there and wherever he could make it fit. And, to the point where I think the pacing on this movie was a little off because he was trying to show too much. Did y'all not feel that way?
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, it was pretty seamless story-wise. Like, I don't know that I got like a lot of stutter step sort of feeling from this movie to where it felt like things were crammed in. I guess I feel what Matt's talking about. Do you? I mean, I don't know that I don't feel it, but I didn't. It's not something that stuck out to me. One
of the scenes that sticks out to me that I want to kind of bring the attention to because Matt brought it up was the game that they're playing when they have to play that game. That kind of middle section, after because he's already, you know, we've had to see this beginning thing where, you know, you set up the situation of this boy, he goes away, which has a decent little setup, you know, because they have that scene where they're down in the pit with his dad and stuff like that. Then we have this raiding scene where we show he's a man and then he has to be introduced to slavery and kind of find his way. And in between like all these things and finding the sword, it's like you throw in this random like game and be like, see, this is the game that people played and this is how people entertained themselves and stuff like that. And I was like, this feels like one of those situations maybe Matt was talking about. It's like, do we really need to watch them playing Viking baseball? Like, really?
I don't know. Like plot wise, it serves I do too. And it also serves a pretty strong narrative purpose in that it is what leads to him being a trusted slave. It leads to the next level of his subterfuge, basically.
Yeah, I dug that scene because it was sort of like interesting to see something about Viking culture that I didn't know existed, that game and how brutal it was. And overall, like the action sequences in this movie and the magical sequences are what really stand out to me. And there's like, the movie opens up with like, it doesn't open up with it, but there's like a really solid like battle sequence at the very beginning, and then we get that sword fight at the end. There's not a whole ton of fighting in between. There's a lot of like this badass Viking character trying to lay low and pretend that he's not the badass that he is. And I felt like that sort of like in between moments, I just was like waiting for him to do more badass type things. Maybe it's just because how the movie started with that like crazy like Viking raid. I was like, holy hell. It was shot so beautifully and it was like so brutal. And then you have to wait so long before you see anything like that again. And I was like,
you're talking about when you introduced him as an adult?
As a man, yeah. And he's like...
Okay, so not like earlier in that. Okay.
Right,
and he catches that fucking spear and then shoots it back in. Oh my God.
I think
and then dodges some arrows.
That like set my expectations in a way that were not served, I think. So for the next 90 minutes or so, I was probably like, I don't know. I just kind of wanted more of that. So like, I guess to oppose what Matt was saying was like, I kind of wanted like more random spectacles thrown in than I got, honestly. Maybe because I don't know enough about it though.
Man, I kind of feel like right in the dead center, you guys, where I don't like have a problem with either of those things. Like I was not like starving for further action after, I don't feel that it set a tone that needed to be, maintained. Mm-hmm. I think it started with starts with the brutality to set that up and then allows a character to sort of live in the reality of that threat constantly. And then, I don't know, to me, like watching him go from devil may care, like fucking badass Terminator motherfucker doing God knows every evil thing you can do to being this like fucking little spy slave, like, keeping his eyes low. I don't know. I thought that was fucking fascinating. And I thought it was like fun to watch that shift. And knowing that eventually it was going to pay off in the form of he's going to beat some wholesale ass at some point. And in between, we got some cool visions. We got some like really beautiful just camera work in general and settings. Like, and we got to like this, we got to the story beat of, him talking to his mom and stuff. And it was all just very interesting to me. Like I thought it all worked for me, even if I was like at that point pretty clear. I was like, okay, we're in a Shakespeare right now. We're doing a Shakespeare. And this is where things are going to go. I was like, I don't think they're going to do anything to sort of like pull the rug on us at this point. It would kind of be heresy to do so. So at that point, I'm just like, okay, well, this is just taking the myth for a spin. And part of the myth is him going from badass to like building himself, having everything, losing everything, building up everything again, losing it intentionally so that he can get what he ultimately wants, which is revenge. Those peaks and valleys are what I was living for with this story.
Shaking a Spear, the movie. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I kind of agree I kind of lean more Bob, but it wasn't just necessarily the spectacle, because like I really liked when he went down in the tomb. I kind of wish they mixed in more of the mythological stuff, because even at one point he's out there like howling with the fox, and what I kind of wanted them to mix in is this idea of kind of like being favored by the gods, because we start off with this kind of ode to Odin, and Odin does rescue him in the form of the ravens. Obviously we see with the fox, the seer visits him personally, all those kinds of things. He gets a sword, but I kind of wish that was like mixed in generally more. Like I felt like we had a mythological moment and then a very grounded period of time, and then a brief mythological moment, and then a regular kind of period of time where people are doing regular slave things, playing baseball, washing clothes. And I was like, okay.
I mean, that works. That's what works for me about The Witch. That's what works, like interspersing like the mythology of that time and era into the reality of that time and era in a way that is both both like not spectacle driven. That's not what I'm trying to get at, but like both magical and real. It's magical realism, I guess.
Yeah,
is the tone we're striking, and I like that.
I felt like this one stopped and started back, like we're doing regular stuff. There's magic. We're doing regular stuff. In The Witch, I feel like once it kind of hits a spectacle, like it's not always there, but it keeps the wheels moving. You know, like the kid disappears, he comes back, he spits up the apple. The mom has the raven. She, you know, is daydreaming about her baby. It's actually a raven picking at her breath. You know, like these things, they like kind of force their way into the regular lives. And once it starts, it doesn't really stop.
Well, I don't
know. I guess I don't see a difference. Go ahead.
I think it just depends on what you're wanting out of the movie. Because if you're coming in, you're like, I want this to be an action movie. There is a long point where the action's pretty tamed down.
Yeah.
But if you come in wanting a movie about weird magic or weird mythology, you're probably getting served what you want. So it's just, I guess that's managing expectations and kind of like wondering what the trailer was trying to sell people coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you're right about that. And like, you're definitely right about the expectations thing. And that's true of all movies to some extent. But, you know, like this is a movie that I personally walked into like expecting it to be a Robert Eggers movie. I expected it to be anachronistic, a very deadly secret matter. And because of the trailers, I knew there was going to be some action interspersed, but that was not what I was in my seat for. I was in my seat for this, like what the story was going to be, for the journey of a single character as he, you know, seeks revenge or whatever, just based on the trailers. And I knew there was going to be some scenes, but I didn't need it to be action scenes in order to get to that end point. I was definitely more interested in the mythological stuff, but the reason that mythological stuff feels so like interesting and like is not just that it's like looks beautiful. It's also that it does have those grounded moments to offset them.
Yeah. That battle scene in the volcano was dope.
So yeah, fucking.
It reminded me of Revenge of the Sith. Anybody else get that?
I made a note. I was like,
definitely.
Did Star Wars steal volcanoes from every other action movie?
With that massive like cut in his arm, like I don't think he would have been able to continue sword fighting.
He's blessed by the gods.
Well, that little boy stabbed him in the back like 7 times, and he's just like, eh.
He probably would have bled out, but you're not walking up a volcano.
You're definitely not using that arm anymore.
Right. Okay.
By the gods.
Actually, I liked how his uncle they portray him kind of like this crusty old man, but then when he gets in the volcano, he's going to take on
He's pretty stacked.
Yeah, he's going to take on this dude who we've seen catch a fucking spear midair and chuck it back, and then he like ultimately almost comes out on top. Yeah.
Well, halfway through the movie, I realized his uncle is Netflix's Dracula, and like it really caught me off guard.
Oh shit. I didn't realize that.
Dracula?
Dude, that shit's dope. Watch that. Or at least that first episode is dope.
Yeah,
I don't know a thing about it.
The first one's good.
Yeah, the first episode's good.
That's a strong recommend from the Straight Chillin' crew
for the first episode.
Watch the first one.
For the first episode. Well, yeah, I thought that was
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and it was like that fight scene. Like, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that you know, being reminded of Revenge of the Sith is just because that's the volcano fight scene we grew up with, and there's no not
to say this was
a sword
like
fight in a volcano.
I'm not.
No, it's not. And it was like good to see that done really well, as opposed to really exhaustively and, you know, CGI'd out the ass. Not that this didn't have its effects too, but it was certainly a little bit more grounded than flipping on and off floating robots and shit.
For sure.
There was one more moment that bothered me storytelling wise, and this could be like maybe based on the myth, but since he just in the myth he pretended just to be a fool for a while, I don't think so. And so this kind of bothered me. So they had this really cool scene where they spike everyone's food with the mushrooms. Everybody's freaking the fuck out. That's cool as shit. And he goes and confronts his mother, and I get the idea that like what he was expecting didn't happen, and he's totally thrown for a loop. I get that. But when he comes out, he tells his wife, no, you just stay here. I'm going to go roam around the hills and like lead them on this merry chase and fuck them up. And then I'll come back for you. The very next scene is just seeing how that plan was so terrible because they immediately just start fucking up all the slaves and he just has to come back and get captured. And I was like, well, that sucks because they just hatched this baller ass plan. And then the next thing he's like, I'm going to go run around the hills for a while. And then just has to come immediately, literally hard cut scene. Buck, I got to come right back and save your ass.
It was a terrible plan. That's true.
Also, that bothered me, as well as when they're able to escape together again on the boat and he decides to bail. And I know he's like, he has to get his revenge or whatever, but it's like, there's this like, we're here and then we can leave and then we come back and then we can leave and then we come back and it's like, what? Just fucking stay or go. Like it's the back and forth that is a little frustrating.
I honestly,
I don't know, man. The back and forth is
right.
Yeah, I honestly thought they were going to sell off, and he was going to realize that revenge wasn't worth it, and that was going to be the point of the movie.
Growth, but no.
Instead, they just went straight into that mythological Dark Knight. I felt the same way. Except that, like, I didn't really like. I kind of think that was the point. Like, showing that scene was to give that impression so that we felt that way. And it's like, oh, now his hubris is taking over him for real. And this is him going in, fighting a battle that does not need to be fought with somebody whose life he's already partaken in ruining and who is like, you know, under the guise of, well, I have to protect you because I love you and because we're getting married and because they'll hunt you down because you have this baby. I now I have to kill everybody. It's like, that's not true. Like, that's not true. You're being like, you're following, you know, the guidance of, you know, of these mythological things, which in fairness are real in this world, but it's just like, you could make a different decision. And that's sort of like the realism that gets cut short because this movie is devoted to being a myth and not being.
Well, that's something that was written. That's something that's kind of part of the mythology too, that they mention a couple times is the idea that the fate is already written. Okay. Right. And like trusting the gods and following the gods. And like, you actually really can't change your fate. You just have to kind of like live it out. And so when he like touches the children and he sees that they are born of the tree, and he kind of like remembers that even when he was a child, he was kind of given this task. And then it's mentioned a couple times by a couple of the like mythological, like, you know, the seer and stuff. And he even mentions like, oh, the thread of the fate, like, can it be rewritten or whatever? And like, I think that was kind of part of it too, of like, well, this is kind of the will, the plan of the gods. This is how it's written. Like, it's got to be done.
I think that's true. And I guess what I'm getting at is that, like, you know, we as Americans with our individualist bent towards everything, like that was speaking to that in us. To show that scene was to give us that moment of being like, yes, this is the thing you obviously should do. You don't need revenge. You need escape from a cycle of violence that you could definitely escape from. And you could make amends for what you've done and all this shit. And that, we want all these good things for him. But because the movie is also like devoted to the mythology and it is telling the mythological tale, not the Americanized retread, the Americanized version that would have him change his fate. He's going to have his fate. He's going to live that fate that is set out for him. I think that's just like devotion to what Eggers is doing. He's trying to speak to that and not neglect it, but also still trying to maintain the mythology that is what he wanted to depict.
Yeah.
I wanted to pose a question about his mother. Because
hot.
Well, that's not the question I was going to ask. But like
that is the answer.
At the beginning of the movie, like we see him as a child and he's creeping underneath the house after his father's been murdered. He's running for his life. And it genuinely does look like his uncle's carrying his mother away and she's like screaming for her life, like flailing is not about it. And then they have that scene where he admits like, hey, you know, face to face, I'm your son. I'm an adult. I'm not dead like you thought. And she's like, yeah, I begged your uncle to kill your father. He was a terrible piece of shit. And I was, you know, laughing as he was carrying me out. And I feel like at the end of the day, she is down with whoever is in power. I feel like she's power hungry and will just like change her recollection or her perception to suit that as long as she's like riding shotgun with whoever the king is, or you know, because at the same time she's like, yeah, I want to be with your uncle, but if you kill him and all my kids, like, I am now your queen and I'm about to seduce your ass if that's where you want to go with this. Like, she's down with whoever the fuck is in charge, even if it's her son, I think, which is bizarre to me.
I didn't take
Matt,
it that way.
you got something to say.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I took it as his father, her original husband, was truly an asshole, and she was a former slave, and he raped her, and she just used her cunning to make him like her, and so she could become queen because she didn't like being a slave. And then when she found a way to get rid of the asshole, she did, because she's smart. And then at the end, I didn't think she was actually trying to seduce her son. I think she was just trying to get him to go outside so he could get killed.
To leave her, to gross him out. Okay.
Yeah.
So you think she was actually like laughing and excited when the uncle was carrying her?
Well, that scene's from the little boy's point of view.
True.
So who knows? You know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of see both of your points, and like I wondered that myself about whether she was she laughing? Because in my memory, it seems far more distressed than that. It's far enough away and obscured enough to where it could be, maybe. I'd have to rewatch it to know for sure, which I haven't yet, obviously. But I think that kind of both readings could work, and I think that is one of the interesting, ambiguous things about the movie is they kind of leave that up to you. What is true in this story is that she, like, the only thing that remains true for her in that moment that we become aware of that is unchangeable and not in a fixed position for the story is that she lied to him. She is lying to him. She wanted him dead, and she still wants him dead, or like to the extent, or at least wants, you know, whoever's in power to be alive and not to be dead. But he's not like a real, like the fact, once he reveals himself to his mother, if she can get him to go away, she can just be like, okay, we have a camp full of people ready to kill this guy who I already wanted dead and I don't have any allegiance to because I hated his father. But either way, the point of her doing that is for his benefit as a character to have that conflict of being like, oh my God, what I thought I was fighting for is not what I was fighting for. And now I want revenge in a different way.
I was very surprised she gave her villain speech while they were alone in the room together. Like, it seemed like the smart thing to do would be like, pretend you're all about it until she has people around and then tell him.
Right. Yeah. Get him.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of took her words at face value, because then a couple things that we know about the situation and that we see again after that scene is, one, we know that the brother was overthrown by King Harold, the king of Norway or whatever. And she didn't kind of like change power there. She fled with him to Iceland, which at the time was like pretty much nothing. You know, there was, you know, they just had this now farmland out there, and they're still able to buy slaves or whatever. So they still have some kind of, you know, worth, but not like what they had, not a kingdom. Right. You know, they're essentially just isolated out in Iceland. And then also too, later on, she, you know, once he has just murdered most of the camp, and she's hiding in her room, she chooses to attack him. So she kind of chooses to go out in that blaze of glory, as opposed to just being like, well, you know, you still have, if you're able to kill my whole camp, then you could probably make a new life for me and you someplace else. But instead she tries to go out like fighting.
Well, I mean, she does do that, but she does that after it's very clear that he is not interested in her in that way.
That's a good point. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
The way I see it is that she's willing to make the best of whatever situation she finds herself in. And you know, if she was raped by Amleth's father, and you know, she was willing to make the best of the situation. You know, being with the king is obviously better than being a slave. And then when that guy was murdered by Amleth's uncle, and she gets taken away by him, like, well, you know, I'm still with the guy that's in power. It's not that bad. And then maybe they were overthrown by the other guy, and maybe he didn't take her. You know, so she just went along with the guy she was with, making the best of the situation still. And when her son comes back, she's like, hey, literally, whatever happens, I'm willing to make work, even if it's like banging my own son. I don't know.
What's interesting about that scene is, like, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, yeah, but at that point, by the time she attacks him, you know, he's already killed the son that she does care about, you know, but then I'm thinking to myself, like, in that conversation, she says something to the effect of, like, she doesn't say, like, if you kill everybody in camp. She says, if you kill everybody in camp, if you kill my husband and if you even have the heartlessness to kill my son, then maybe we have maybe I'll join you or whatever. So she's kind of like prodding him with the idea of killing his half brother. I don't know. So like what is her allegiance then? Because to my mind, I had forgotten about that to some degree. And I was like, when she attacks him, I was like, well, yeah, you killed her son that she actually gives a shit about. But she was kind of putting him up on a proffer plate for him earlier in the movie. So
she's just down.
Maybe I think it might kind of be both. Like it's that thing where, like Rob, like you said, you get this fucking guy. Like maybe he did kidnap her, but eventually she leaned in and like accepted this new king because it was a better deal for her than being slaughtered or slaved again.
Yeah. Making lemonade, I think, is what she's just used to doing. So she'll continue to do it.
Yeah, just making some lemonade.
Making lemonade.
That's some brutal lemonade.
I know we could talk about this movie for so much longer, but are there any other like points we definitely want to touch on before we rate this thing?
All the dream sequences were beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Valkyrie has cool
flying.
braces.
Yeah, with braces, and they didn't give the
I don't
horses
understand what
wings.
those braces were, but sure. Yeah. It was good shit.
I got trivia on that coming your way later. Just hang on.
Okay.
Also,
I'm dying to go back to Iceland too now.
Yeah, those lighting shots, like the red lighting shots or whatever, they use them a couple times. Those were super badass.
Yeah. It's a beautiful movie. The cinematography is just incredible.
That first raid is just so goddamn brutal, and it really made me hate this character for some time in this movie.
Yeah. And
then eventually you just kind of come around to like him because you're following his journey or whatever, but he didn't deserve to go out a hero, man. There's no fucking heroes in this movie.
I agree. I want to give a quick shout out to the no-nose man, because that shit was brutal, dude.
Oh, yeah. I have that in my notes as well.
Woof.
Oh, God.
And also then when he puts the sword through the empty nose slot.
That's the part. I thought that's what you were talking about.
No, he was talking about when he got his nose removed.
The whole thing. The whole character. And how like every time you see him in silhouette, he's got his helmet with the nose piece like sticking out, but there's no nose underneath it. And the whole thing. Anyway.
Odin's Raven.
Great. Odin's Raven. Let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. And if there's anything else you guys want to touch on, please feel free to do that as we're wrapping up here. Matt, you are the esteemed guest. We're going to let you kick us off out of 5. How do you feel about the Northman?
So I kind of have a bone to pick about this 5-star rating.
Okay.
I don't really understand it.
Okay.
Because in American schools, we do the percentile, right? Mm-hmm. So I gave this movie a percentile on 82. But 5 stars, I gave it a 2.5. Those things don't add up. They don't add up.
They don't.
I don't understand. So it was a low B for me. Uh-huh. So, but when I figure that out, that's a 4.1. That seems too high. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So like a 4, a solid 4 would be like an 80 is kind of, I guess, 20% per. And we do like the half stars too, if you want to, since you're the guest, if you want to
I saw no woman nipple in this movie.
So, 0 stars then.
It's a 4 for me then, I guess.
Well, the code applies.
You said a no nipple woman?
No.
What did you say?
Saw me a no nipple woman today.
I was like, wait, did I miss this scene?
I saw breasts in this movie, but I don't recall actually seeing any nipple. So I don't think it applies.
I don't think so. Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy, when they're rolling around, I don't think so.
They do some strategic arm work in that scene, but they show some fanny. They show a little fanny.
All the booty meat you could wish for.
Yeah, and we all love booty meat, but we don't give half stars for it.
Yeah. God damn, this is not how I wanted this conversation to begin, or have in it.
That's a 4-star from our boy Matt. Juice, what about you?
I'm going to go down my list real quick. The opening with the volcano and the call to Odin, that was really cool and kind of set up the idea of how beautiful this is going to be. Music was really good. Also, just like Viking music or like stuff that is inspired by Vikings is like really badass, apparently. I really like it music wise. The red lighting shots were beautiful and really cool. That shot that we didn't talk about after the the raiding scene where he's like standing there and it's centered and it's that barn. And then as he moves away, they burn it with all the children inside. That was like really fucked up, but also an amazing shot. Bjork's character, great outfit. I like the design of that. And the kind of mythology behind it. King Harold of Norway, he is actually in Vikings. So this takes place at the same period, apparently. The scene where he gets the sword from the undead was one of my favorites. That was really cool. I love the guy with no nose. I love the tripping on mushrooms idea and scene. I thought that was really cool. I kind of wish they played it up a little bit more, honestly, but that was just a really cool idea. I liked that. It feels like we've been covering a lot of incest recently. So when she kissed him, I was like, what is going on? But it was a cool twist with the mom. It's something that I didn't kind of really see going.
It's really cool incest.
No,
I have a daddy kink.
Yeah. But I don't know. I like the twist with the mom, but I felt like that could have even been played up a little bit more. Yeah, as I said before, that whole idea of I'm going to leave you here and then he comes right back, that felt choppy and weird and strange to me. I don't know. The servant girl singing and then being killed, that was like really impactful. Also, their little exchange, once everybody's dead, the mom and everything is dead, and then the uncle comes back in and he says something like, I'll meet you at the gates of hell. And he says, at the gates of hell is where you'll find me or whatever. I was like, that's really badass. And then they have a cool volcano fight scene. So overall, I liked this movie. I think it's going to be my least favorite Eggers movie, though. Him trying to make a more accessible film, I think, kind of takes something away from him. While this cast is stacked like crazy, I felt like, man, I really wish I had more Willem Dafoe. Man, I really wish I had more Bjork. And like each people get a little bit of time to shine, and they all do well. But when you have so many people and you're not able to give them each their proper, I don't know, it felt weird having such a big cast. And I felt like even though they did well, they didn't give as much as I wanted, I guess, from these amazing characters and actors and actresses. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with Matt that there's not, we could talk about it, but it's not like The Witch or The Lighthouse where I want to think about it. It's cool in its time, and I appreciate what it's doing, and it's amazing filmmaking. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it really did kind of feel a little underwhelming to me. At kind of how straightforward it was, I guess. And so overall, I think I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5.
All right, 4 from Juice. I'm going to slide in here real quick.
Bob, out of 5, the Northman, please let me know your thoughts.
Nay.
I will let you know my thoughts. Yeah, the filmmaking, the craft of this is consistent with Robert Eggers' previous 2 movies. It's incredible. The dude can craft one insane movie. He does a ton of research. I feel like everything you see on screen is intentional, and when you watch a movie that he's put together, you feel overall like you're just sort of in the hands of somebody who truly understands their craft and is like a master filmmaker. So you want to go on the journey he's taking you on. I do think that this tale is unfortunately so well known and so familiar that as you're watching it unfold, you feel a little bit bored with it, or at least I did. Because you're just so in tune with what's about to happen. Even if you don't know these specific characters, you know how it's going to end for the most part. I do love the action sequences. There's a lot of insane choreography and camera work that goes into those scenes. They're just unfortunately too few and far between, I think. I love the magic that's going on in this movie. Yet again, it's just sort of too few and far between. Bjork's character, the Cirrus, the He Witch character, which is what they credit him as on IMDb. The guy that's got like, Willem Dafoe's severed head, and it sort of like tells him where to go find the sword. Like, I love that whole scene when he fights the corpse to get the sword. Like, I love all of that stuff. But when he's just pretending to be this like slave and he's not, he's sneaking around at night, it sort of like loses a lot of the momentum that it launches with and does end with, thankfully. But that middle third just kind of, it feels like it loses some momentum. I like the character of Olga, Anya Taylor-Joy. She does a lot with a little, but I feel like ultimately they're like sort of love. It rings hollow. I don't know that I fully buy into it necessarily. And like at the end of it, when he just sort of jumped ship to go, kill his uncle anyway, it's like, I don't know that there was a whole hell of a lot of a point to it, other than like, it was prophesied that you will have a child, and that child will be the first, female to reign over whatever. Like, I don't know. It's just sort of like prophecies that don't really mean anything because we don't see them come to fruition in this movie. So I don't know. It just rang a little bit hollow, I guess. This is a great movie. It's very well crafted, but it is also probably my least favorite of Robert Eggers's movies. I'm gonna come in with a 3 on this one.
Wow.
Randy.
Whoa.
How do you feel?
Not 3. Yeah. So to go off of some of the things you're saying, like the thing is, like I largely agree with a lot of things you said. I too am just going to put it out front, and I've been thinking this since I left the theater. This is definitely my least favorite Eggers movie, and I think honestly, if I had to put a fine point on why that is, it's because as this movie is every bit as incredibly immersive as his other films. It's got a lot of beautiful shots. It's got a lot of great acting, all this stuff, but it doesn't have as much of a point of view as those other movies have. And that's kind of the thing that to Justin's point, makes me want to think about a movie is what is its point of view. The point of view of this seems pretty streamlined and just like, this is the myth. This is the myth. You get a little bit of taste of like, different readings you can make on this thing or that. But like, if you've read Hamlet, if you've ever dissected Hamlet, even if you haven't, this is just a straightforward story. And there's like, if we're looking at it with modern eyes, there's no heroes in it for you to really feel like you're rooting for, except, by virtue of just forgetting the terrible things that they've done. No, there's no full, like this guy's blessed by the gods and also murders hundreds of children. So like, yeah, you kind of take the good, you take the bad there. I do think nobody's perfect, So sometimes you just got to like burn a whole hut down with hundreds of children and old people in it. Yeah, seems cool. Anyway, but the Willem Dafoe head I wanted to bring up. I'm glad you brought that up, Bob, because we did not really talk about that. I thought that was incredible. That was an incredible prop for one thing. It looked just fucking like him. And that whole sequence of like the guy sort of like commandeering Willem Dafoe's character from the afterlife to tell this prophecy was so cool. I loved the corpse fight. Great corpse fight. I loved Noseless Man getting stabbed through the lack of nose. Ugh. I like all that shit was super cool. I liked the the whatever, the wickets, the rugby, whatever that was that they played. I liked seeing that, and I don't know. I liked being immersed in this. The immersion is like half the point for me with Eggers movies, and this movie delivers that for sure. It is still my least favorite thing. Oh, I did want to point out, like I was a little confused by a few things in this movie. I had a hard time understanding some of the things that were said, which I mean, kind of is what it is to some extent. But I'm a subtitled all the time dude at this point in my elderly life, and so I was missing that in the theater a little bit, and I had a little bit hard time understanding what was being said sometimes, which led me to misunderstand that Anya Taylor-Joy was causing these people to trip and not causing them to die of poisoning, which is what I thought she was doing. So that kind of stung that didn't happen. It was like, well, Noseless guy could already be fucking dead. Like this whole camp could basically already be dead right now, except for you, the slaves, which is what, would be the most positive outcome for this guy.
Maybe she doesn't have poison power.
I'm guessing so. Them. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm assuming there's certainly reasons why that might not be the doable or whatever, but they don't cover that. They just say like, oh, this, and I thought that's what they were saying is like, oh, here's a mushroom. It'll put this in the soup and they'll fucking die is what I thought was happening. And it just didn't. So it was a little weird to me. you could write it off, but overall it just kind of like sucked in the moment. I was like, oh, I loved watching them trip though. I did like that. I think to Rob's point, the love story with Olga is a little bit like not forced. It's like a love of convenience, which kind of makes sense for the time and place, but also doesn't really ring as love to us in the classical sense. I think that her purpose there is, it's to have a child, because if you're being devoted as a filmmaker, as a storyteller to the myth that you're portraying, the progeny, the continuation of the family lines is a huge fucking part of that. So like having that love story exist at all was absolutely necessary if that's what you're trying to do, in my opinion. I don't think that I necessarily bought it as a romantic thing so much as a matter of convenience though. So yeah, those are my dings for it. I loved pretty much everything else. We've kind of talked about everything we've loved. To me, this is not the best Eggers movie. It's my least favorite of the three, but it's still an incredible movie that I would watch again, certainly. And I think I looked back and I gave both The Lighthouse and The Witch 5s. This is a 4.5 for me.
Nice.
Step down.
Bring that average up, Randy. Who compensate for Bob over here?
3. I'm like, my pearls have been clutched. Let me tell you.
Well, that's going to put our average at a 3.87. Let's go ahead and jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about the Northman.
Certified fresh to death.
If only I gave extra points for booty meat, but alas, man's got a code.
It just doesn't rank for juice. Just doesn't rank. God damn. So the Rotten Tomatoes segment. Let's do the intro for that now. So the Rotten Tomatoes segment, for those who are new to the podcast, is where I'm going to give these three gentlemen the chance to guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate scores are for both critics and users on RottenTomatoes.com for The Northman. Now, there are 253 reviews from critics for this film.
Wow.
253, yeah. It's a well-reviewed film, at least like there's a pretty high volume for this early in the game.
Damn.
We'll start with Matt. You're our guest. What do you think the critics' aggregate score would be between 0 and 100%?
Well, I think this is going to be a critical darling. I think The Witch in The Lighthouse is going to spread some of their love over to this movie as well. People are going to be Egger fans, so even if they had some misgivings, they'll probably look over those a little easier than they would if it wasn't an Eggers film. I'll put it at 85 because I know some people will call it artsy fartsy too. So I'm just going to even that out at an 85.
Yep. All right, 85. That's our first guess. We'll go with Bob next. Bob, where do you think the critics are going to be on this?
I think that's a solid guess. I haven't heard really anybody say anything negative about this movie, so I'm going to go a little higher. I'll take the 90, please.
90. Okay, a 5-point difference there for Bob. Juice, where you at?
Yeah, I kind of agree with all this, and I think I'm going to take the lower end, just because, you could get some critics who are a little harsher on it, but I think in general it's going to be positive. So I'll take 80.
80. All right. Well, we're very, very close, but not a ringy dingy for this one. And our boy Bob is going to take this one. It is 89%.
Ooh, all right.
Very close
So
indeed.
pretty good. Yeah.
Finally.
Wow.
Very, very close.
A healthy.
Finally, after that historical double ringy.
Oh.
You got some ground to make up, Bob.
What history it was.
Oh, it was history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
All right. Well, Juice, why don't you start us off for our audience score, of which there are over 1,000 verified ratings. Where do you think that the audience is falling on this particular film?
Well, if it's going to be 89 for the critics, I think the viewers are going to be a little bit lower because I don't think they're going to pay as much respect to the Eggers name and the artsy fartsiness of it all. But I hope that it's still generally kind of positive. So if the critics gave it 89, I'm going to stick with my 80.
80. All right. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, I feel like this would probably be lower than the critics. I'll take 85, please.
85. All right, Matt, round us out. Where are you falling on this?
Well, I'm thinking that there's going to be like a lot of bro dudes who come up thinking they're about to see an action movie and they're not going to get the action movie they saw. And I also feel there's going to be a lot of people, significant others, getting dragged to this movie, and it's going to feel too long for them. So I'm gonna dip low. I'm gonna go 70 with this.
All right,
70%. All right. Well, damn, pretty good logic there, Matt. It is a 67%.
Oh no,
67. Not even 69 dudes.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Well done.
That's some
job.
sound. You're better at this than we are, by the way.
I'm gonna need one of y'all to tell me you'd fuck a space vampire, please.
Bob, that sounds like a job for you.
I'd fuck a space vampire. I'll be honest.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right.
So,
All right.
yeah,
Matt,
well
would
done
you
there.
like to give Bob his hell skeet to save me the embarrassment?
Hell skeet.
Thank you.
Be embarrassed.
Thank you.
You can't ask somebody as accomplished as I to hell skeet a man.
The
For such a score.
ringy dingy champion over here.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've made history over here.
I've ringy.
Be the best, you gotta beat the best, Bob. I mean, what can you say? Woo! All right.
I guess.
The critics' consensus reads as follows: a bloody revenge epic and breathtaking visual marvel. The Northman finds filmmaker Robert Eggers expanding on his scope without sacrificing any of his signature style. I think that's pretty fair, but
yeah.
it lacks any bite at all. But whatever. Prince Omelet, big fan.
My boy Omelet.
You gotta
My
crack,
boy Omelet.
You gotta crack a few
What's that?
eggers to make an omelet. You know what I'm saying?
Oh shit. Let's find a negative review and see if it has any humor to it. None of the players should be blamed for the uneven historical canvas or the unnecessary length of some scenes. Regardless if anyone is looking to be entertained by the stories of this ilk, I suggest a 1958 spectacle simply called The Vikings. Thanks, Pop. Why don't you try talking about the movie we're talking about? I mean, I don't know.
We could also be critiqued in that, given the episode.
Yeah, but only if you soundbite us like they do on Rotten Tomatoes, and nobody would do that.
For sure.
I have
Nobody
a daddy
would.
kink.
Nobody would put us on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, that is true. That much I know. So that's our Rotten Tomato segment. Bob, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump over into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
It's
Bob,
totally
do you have a lot of trivia?
not a ton. I've got some though. Yeah.
Is it okay if I start with a little quote from Eggers himself?
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I just saw this little snippet of a GQ article that he did, and the question was asked, do you have any interest in ever making a movie set in modern times? He replies, no thank you. What's the next historical setting you're looking into? Well, the New Yorker said I was writing something Elizabethan. Thank you, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
So well read. So there you go. But I've written all kinds of things and haven't got made. I'll write a lot more that will not get made. Every time period interests me except for the one we are living in. So
that's
fair
there
enough.
you go.
Yeah.
oof.
Yeah.
That is fair.
That's an opinion you can have, but buddy, it comes off a little snobby.
Artsy fartsy, Randy. I'm fine. That I kind of like that take because we've always, if every movie he incorporates this idea of mythology, then that's cool to me.
Yeah. No, I
to
mean,
have this guy who's going to stick with this period piece, mythological, then that's pretty interesting.
I'm not arguing with the results whatsoever. I just think that it's like, no, thank you. There's some interesting things about the, hellscape we live in currently, but
such as the Straight Chillin' podcast.
Yeah, make a documentary about us. That would be nuts. Hellskeet, the Straight Chilling documentary.
Great Odin's raven.
There you go. Yeah, I've got a little bit of trivia. Let me blast through some of this for you real quick. So this movie takes place in the year 914 during the Land Namsold, which literally translates to Age of Land Taking, and that refers to the early settlement of Iceland before the establishment of the Aething. I'm killing these pronunciations.
Oh, man.
I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Me and Bob, man, we just can't pronounce shit.
Me and my boy Amleth, we have trouble with talking.
Randy just needs to read everything from now on.
Everything.
We're giving trivia back to Randy.
Full circle.
That is
Full circle.
That is not the deal.
This was loosely based on the story of Amleth, which we already mentioned. He appears in the Gesta Danorum, which translates to History of the Danes, written circa 1200 by Saxo Grammaticus. But
my boy Saxo,
baby. It's
the Saxo.
The story was based on earlier oral traditions. Amleth obviously inspired Shakespeare's Hamlet. We talked about that.
The old oral traditions, boy?
The best kind of tradition. The dental markings on the Shield Maiden are based on finds in various Viking graves of horizontal lines carved into the teeth. These are particularly common on the island of Gotland. The principal theory is that the carvings were decorations and filled with color pigment. So those were not braces, which is kind of nuts. Do you know anything about that, Matt?
Oh no, that's new to me.
Hey, I read a thing online that you also
good
read.
for you.
Hey,
good for you,
yay,
Bob.
yay.
You know, well done.
Thanks, guys. In the scene in which the Ulfenhauer, oh boy, attacked the Slavic town, Amleth catches a spear in midair and throws it back at the Slavs in one movement. This is taken directly from the medieval Icelandic story of Njás saga, in which Adolf throws a spear at the Viking hero Gunnar, but Gunnar catches it in midair and throws it straight through Adolf and his shield. So that's another bit of...
Damn, I didn't know that was... That's also mythological? That's a pretty badass myth.
Through the fucking shield. Damn.
Rough.
It's a rocket.
The gentleman that played the He-Witch in the cave actually learned how to throat sing for his role. Which is
nice.
Dude, cool. That's fucking awesome. I was trying to do that the other day after I saw this movie, and it's fucking hard. You know, surprisingly.
Give it a shot. Can we hear you real quick right now?
Okay. Let me see. Oh, no, I can't do it. I'm going to need like 20 minutes of prep time before I can try that again.
Sounds great.
We're seeing Randy's oat base right now. You just need to do a couple more.
A space vampire.
Just need to do a couple more sit-ups, my guy. Then you'll get it.
Randy didn't do his deuce-ups today, clearly.
Oh, man. You guys, it's just not nice, you know? It's just not nice.
I've got a few more here. One of the first shots in the theatrical trailer show a pair of ravens flying toward the island where the story is supposed to take place. The ravens more than likely are a reference to the two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who are used by Odin as familiars in many Viking and Nordic legends. The film is obviously titled Northman, which is also the last name of the vampire in which Alexander Skarsgård is known for playing in HBO's True Blood, which is, I guess, really just kind of a weird coincidence there. But that character's name was Eric Northman. He's a 10th century Viking who was turned into a vampire in the show True Blood, which I have not seen.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
I had two things of trivia.
Oh, yeah.
So one was you talked about them moving to Iceland during this age of free land.
Mm-hmm.
Before the Viking Age, Iceland was actually uninhabited. So it was the only place they could go and start farms where they didn't have to fight somebody to get a farm.
Nice.
And that's why why so many Vikings ended up there is there was all this war going on. And they're like, nah, fuck war. We're leaving Denmark. And they went over to someplace where it was safe. And the second one is the scene where he's like, I'm going to go up in the hills and I'll come back for you. And then he had to come back immediately. Well, that scene where he just walks out and starts yelling his name and who he is and everything for the first time. That's the first take because he lost his voice while filming that first take. And he couldn't do any second takes because he yelled so loud.
Damn.
He should have learned his double voice thing. You know?
Should have done a couple extra sit-ups.
Oh, let me try. Better?
Yeah, you got it, man.
All right,
That's some
sweet.
dope throat singing. Sounds a little bit like a Sasquatch.
It's unlike
Well,
anything.
you know, they're very adept at that, as we know.
Unlike anything I've ever smelled before. That's for sure. Yeah, that's all we got for trivia. Let's
In
talk.
my life.
Let's talk Cooter of the week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Dude, I all of a sudden want to watch that Bigfoot documentary again.
It's so good. Bigfoot Monster Mystery is what.
God, yes. Come
I don't think I've watched it since we covered it. At this point, it's been like 2 or 3 years. So
Episode
watch it again.
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
I think it's episode 201.
201.
Bigfoot
Yeah,
Monster
damn.
Mystery. Check that out. It's on YouTube. Bigfoot Monster Mystery. Also, last time we talked about it, it was on Amazon Prime, so it's pretty easy to find.
Oh,
It is
okay.
hilarious, and you will
It
not.
comes under all
regret it.
kinds of different names, though.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Is
it
the
does.
set. It's hard to find, though.
Check it out.
Look up our website, and there should be in the show notes.
Yeah, we got a link to it in the show notes. Yeah. You're welcome.
All right. Yeah.
Worth
good. Anyways,
Like nothing
Cooter's
I'd ever smelled before in my life.
in my life. Cooter's a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, who is our cooter king this week?
I'm going to say
I think we-
Queen.
Cooter Queen is what I was
Yeah,
that's
Cooter
Nicole
Queen.
Cooter Kidman, if you ask me.
There's some very strong sexual deviance coming out of the Kidman camp in this film.
All right, let's go. Kidman, Matt, kick us off. Which point would you like to nominate the queen
I'm
for?
going to hit her for a tire. She's the only one not dirty. I don't trust it.
Smart. Smart.
She's too clean.
She's a flaxen-haired maiden, sir.
She's always wearing red. Like, she never changes that outfit.
Put on that red light. You know what that means.
Yeah.
She's trying to fuck her son.
Yeah. Okay, so sexual deviance. Let's switch over to that one.
Light incest.
Don't
Some-
kiss your son. I think that's a general rule that should be
Unless you're
followed.
Tom Brady, of course.
I have a daddy kink. Hey,
And
this isn't Boston.
then it's
okay?
acceptable.
Or
Dude, have y'all
Tampa.
seen that? Have y'all seen that Meat Canyon
Yes.
Tom Brady?
That's the only thing I think of.
Dude, you gotta watch
That's
that
the
shit.
it is.
It's
Wow.
messed
You feel like a
up.
cooter just watching that shit. Anyway, back on point here. Yeah, the sexual deviance there. I would say certainly some manipulation going on. I mean, if no matter what you think of what happens at the beginning, there is some manipulation going on either
Yeah.
there or at the end from her, where it's very much like trying to stay on top of the pile in some ways. Yeah, I mean, if she was truly laughing in that moment, she conspired to have not just her husband but her own son murdered. So pretty fucking manipulative and horrible.
All right. So sexual deviance, manipulation, maybe a little look in attire, maybe. Pathetic. Is she pathetic?
I don't think so. She went from being a slave to being the queen to multiple kings. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that shows at least a cunning.
I don't know. I think it's pretty pathetic to say, yeah, kill my kid so I can have a better life. That doesn't vibe with me.
No, well, yes. Nah, that's true.
And she also didn't choose to be with those people. She's just agreeing to go along with it. Really, she's riding the wave. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you
I
can
don't
say
know.
the same for the kid that she tried to kill. So
Yeah.
If indeed she did had conspired to have him killed, it's like obviously a horrible fucking thing, but it's also would be a result of being a raped and brutalized slave that became queen. So entering some territory that makes that uncomfortable for me.
I guess why do you gotta kill your own kid once he's walking around and
just take him with you? Have
10
a half
years
son.
old, yeah.
But I guess he was in love with his father and wouldn't have had it. I don't know. It's just how the myth goes, guys.
Yeah,
we didn't write it.
Yeah,
we didn't write the fire.
Nah. Let's see. So smug arrogance. Would we say she's smug arrogant?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think she gets enough either way.
Yeah. It's that one-on-one scene she has where she's
literally she's doing the villain monologue, like
I
Austin
know,
Power, like Dr. Evil.
You believe that myth I told you as a child? Like, wow,
stupid little shit.
Yeah, exactly. You are an idiot, but guess what? If you want to fuck me, we can do this. Apparently, that's something that you can do in this.
Did we ever see her in a scene interacting with her now slaves? Because if she came from slavery, I'd be curious, how she treated her slaves. But
I think we did, but it's only very much in passing. It's not really a lot of characters, at least from what I remember. One thing to note. This is kind of neither here nor there, but one thing that I wanted to mention during trivia and I forgot is that her and Skarsgård played against each other. He played her very abusive husband in Big Little Lies. And it was just a very compelling show, by the way, and I recommend. But anyway, it was weird to see them playing as mother and son.
Yeah.
In this film, and just, even when they kiss, I'm like, that's your abusive husband. Don't kiss that.
That's your son.
It's in no way is this appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, I think she hit.
I think we lock her up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Anybody else want to nominate someone, or we got it?
I think we have some tertiary cooters, but I think the fucking your son to get out of a tight spot kind of solidifies you.
All right.
Yeah.
Nicole
Booker,
you're going in Cooter prison. Take her away, boys.
Plump, so right.
Whoa.
She has been booked.
Got her.
I think we should probably forego what we've been watching this week. We're running a little bit long, and we do have a few voicemails to get to.
What? Who would have called our show?
Who indeed? Let's find out with Hotline Screams.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails this week. First up, we're going to hear from the one, the only, Matt.
Woohoo.
Hey crew, it's Matt. It is 7:27 a.m. I miss people telling the time when they called in, so I'm going to start that shit back up. I called to answer the Final Destination question. I kind of misunderstood it, and I thought you meant the big group catastrophe at the beginning of the movie that gets avoided. And I kind of had the idea of using the 1919 molasses flood in Boston for that, and make it a period piece.
Oh,
because that was right after World War I had ended, and they were using all that molasses to make ethanol, to make bombs. But the war was over, so they were just stuck with all this molasses, right? And then they were like, well, fuck, we'll just make rum. But then Prohibition got passed, and they had to get rid of all this stuff in a year. And they filled up this giant tank, and 2.3 million gallons just busted out of this thing, and it was a 25-foot wave through upper North Boston, and just I think it killed 21 people and fucked up a lot of other stuff. But yeah, you could have people avoid that, and then death has to hunt them down because they didn't drown in the molasses. Maybe have a World War I vet where he had seen this Final Destination shit happen before over in France. And it'd just be cool to do it as a period piece and get to show like this cool catastrophe that happened that doesn't seem real, but it very much is real. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Bye.
Worst call ever.
Directed by Robert Eggers.
Man.
That's the next one.
That's the best answer to that question we ever.
That's amazing.
I would love a movie about that, but I don't know if I would trust the people who can't make convincing meatheads at a gym to do a period piece of any kind.
Directed by Robert Eggers.
All right. I don't know, Robert. I don't know.
I want to hear early 20th century Boston accents.
Hell yeah.
That's what I want.
How's that go? Hit me with it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't do that shit.
Perfect. You cut out, but everybody, you should know that it was a perfect accent.
Nailed it. Definitely nailed it. That's a cool ass
Here's my
story, though.
impression.
I gotta take a dump.
A 25-foot wave of molasses?
That is the slowest death.
That's incredible.
Damn.
That's a great story.
Because it all got sunk into the ground. They say in the summer, you can still smell molasses up there, and it was over 100 years ago.
No shit. That's
Holy
amazing.
shit.
God damn, you throw that in the bay, you got yourself a pretty good boba tea.
You got a stew going. Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. Honestly, I would love to see like a Final Destination like set in a different time period, because you could definitely make that happen. It doesn't have to be present day. I don't need to see another.
I don't know that it would be. It could be like having it be totally separated from today would actually make that franchise interesting again. I think that's a great idea.
Refresher.
We're trying to make elevated horror around here now. Okay.
It don't have to be elevated. I want to see people get hit by buses in those movies and shit. Like, it's not a movie that needs to be serious.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of ways you could die back in the day. They need to capitalize on that.
Disease.
Whole lot of
Everyone gets a virulent disease.
VD. Oh, my dick exploded. I'm dead.
Blowing my dick up.
Exploded.
Oh, got the mushroom dick. Oh, God.
I got too much of that booty.
You don't know
meat.
what death is.
Death by booty meat.
Well, that's a way to go.
Sounds like a way to go for me, boy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling in, Matt. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to hear from our boy Jack. Let's hear what he has to say.
It's been my second week in a row calling in. It's Jack yet again. I apologize for last week. I couldn't understand a single word I had said. And considering this is an audio medium, it might be important. I was driving. What an asshole. Anyway, yeah. You guys called in about Hammer horror movies? So I'm calling in to answer that one. I'm not too big on Hammer either. I think we're all a bunch of schmucks. However, you guys are a bit older than me, but you might know who Cinemassacre James Rolfe is. He does a great series that he's been doing since I've basically been in kindergarten called Monster Madness. If you've never watched it, highly recommend it. I'm not a big fan of everything that guy does, but that series kicks ass. And he does I swear to God, he did a top 10 horror movies for Hammer specifically, because he loves all the old 50s, 60s horror movies that nobody's ever watched. So definitely check that guy out, because he's an expert on it. As for me, I've only ever watched the Christopher Lee Dracula movies. He's the second best Dracula to Bela Lugosi. So I've watched a few of those. I guess just go watch those. I don't know. You might enjoy it. You might have a good time. Do you know that Dracula had a beard in the book? I read the book a while ago, and he has a fucking beard, and no Dracula's ever had a beard, and probably ever will. That's bizarre. Anyway, I had a question. I was in a debate with somebody, and if a vampire came to your town and was plopped into your little community, three things. One, would you survive? Two, how long would it take you to notice? And three, when would you notice? See, for me, I'm a night owl. I like to stay up late at night, so I'm pretty susceptible to vampires. I used to like to go night walking. I don't really do it anymore because I have a job. But, So I would have been vampire food for sure. And also, if like a vampire girl came to my window, I'm the kind of guy where like I'd probably be a little bit like, this is interesting. Like, would you like to call like a goth vampire girl at my window? That's not the worst thing to happen to a man. But you know, I'd probably die. I'd definitely probably become a vampire. That's not good to think about. Anyway, where you guys live? I don't know. They should really make like a South Korean vampire movie. That'd be rad. If they made one of those, that'd be fucking. I'd watch that. What the hell is that? Anyway, I'll let you go. Later.
I'll let you go.
Jack, it's called Thirst. We have covered.
We covered it.
And it's
watch Thirst.
It's very good.
You will enjoy it. I want to also, like, real quick before we get into his question, that like James Rolfe Cinemassacre is really, really fun. I totally agree with him on that. I recently watched his coverage, or like this was an older video, I think, where he was talking about which Dracula movies was closest to the source material in storytelling purposes. And it was really interesting to hear like some of the things like I had forgotten about the original novel and like things that like just straight up spurned from, you know, other sources from stage plays and stuff and from Bela Lugosi rather than, you know, the mustache and the beard and everything, all that stuff. That was really interesting. So yeah, I recommend that. I double down on that. But yeah, let's get to that question.
I go to bed at like 5 p.m., so I'd be dead for sure.
Just because you're asleep?
Yep, I just sleep through the night.
Sleepy bitches get it first.
They can't come in unless you invite them. And if you're asleep,
yeah, so you'd be safe, Bob.
So yeah, I guess we need to. So we're playing old school rules. We're not playing thirst rules. We're playing like if I don't invite you in, then I'd be safe as fuck, dude. I just I'm
you'd sleep through their whole feeding period.
Good to go.
Bob doesn't have guests. Doesn't believe in them.
You're not invited in ever.
I mean, that's the whole point.
I think that I would be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's like it's a cultural thing where they're like, you should be, it's fucking night, go to bed. What are you doing staying up late? Go to bed. So they would tell their kids, there's vampires out here, stupid, go to bed. But they don't have to tell you because you're a good boy.
That's right. I'm an old boy is what it is.
I have a daddy kink. All right, moving on.
That too.
For my part, I definitely see myself as being Shaun in the first third of Shaun of the Dead, not noticing anything, even though it's very, very obvious. And then probably dying, but maybe getting it together in time.
I would probably willingly join the Vampire League if possible. So I guess
you would be a familiar? That means you're doing people's fucking laundry for years.
Oh, well, we'll see about that.
Chomp.
After a couple of those sit-ups, I'll be headed straight to the top. Just give me a little bit.
See, I work swing
taking over that coven.
So I'd be driving home and just seeing the aftermath every morning. Like, that house is ripped up and on fire. Oh, there's a dead body in that lawn. It's time for me to go to bed. Not my problem.
I feel like you would survive unless it was specifically space vampires.
Oh no, I'm a goner. Yeah. And you know what? They could even just be like, it could just be a normal vampire like in an astronaut helmet, and I think I would just take the
chance. Wearing like an Plan 9 from outer space costume.
She has a NASA t-shirt on. I might just see where this goes.
Let's ride this out.
A vampire.
What planets you been to, baby?
I was imagining a vampire with an astronaut helmet and assless chaps.
Oh, as you do. That's how they come. Stock.
Vampiric candy.
That's the vampire for me.
Evil.
With all that booty meat.
Bottom meat.
Vampiric bottom
meat.
Bottom
seat meat.
You have ample bottom meat, I see.
Your bottom meat is quite rotund, madam.
Invite me in.
Oh my God, this is. Ooh,
that's it. Like where this is That's going. Enough. That's enough of that. Thanks for calling, Jack. Good to hear from you, specifically not from your vehicle, because that shit was difficult to understand. Last but not least, we're going to hear from our girl Logan. Let's hear what she has to say.
What up, King? It's your girl. Logan. I just finished listening to y'all's last episode. I don't think that I would fuck a Nazi's wife. My body is a temple. So that's... I actually just watched my first Hammer horror movie this past week. But it's one that y'all already mentioned, so I don't think that I would recommend it necessarily, and I know that Bob wouldn't. So, it was a watch. I don't think it warrants as much conversation as it gets, but there you have it. So, I don't have any recommendations, though, but I just feel like it's been a long time since we've heard the How to Save a Life bump, so I was hoping Andy could play it. Bye!
Hey, Bob, you buy any blues recently?
You know I did.
You did?
Hang on, Randy. I know recently Bob remodeled the Blue Room in order to make extra space for all of his
extra
blues.
Space? Bob!
I got a new shelf!
Where did Bob go wrong? Were he and his friends sifting way too long through those Blu-ray bins? And it gets worse, he'll have no jet ski, wasting all his dough on those DVDs.
Bob, how much did that new shelf set you back, my guy?
About 1/32 of a jet ski.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
Figure that out.
Bob,
how are you gonna drive your jet ski without that 30-second bit?
Do we checked your numbers at like episode 200? At this point, we're getting close to 400. You know, you would have like 5 jets.
You would have a
you'd have a boat. You could have a small yacht at this point, Bob. Think about that.
They call
Think
me
about that.
Lil Yachty, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you, Logan.
If you had the chance to trade all your blues right now for a small yacht, would you accept that deal, Bob?
No, I already get to
no.
take advantage of friends who have boats, so I don't. I don't want to own one myself.
You don't have to convince us that you take advantage.
I take full advantage.
Yeah. Oh, we know.
I don't think blues float, Bob. I don't know.
We all float.
Not when they're steel.
Yeah, you're gonna regret that when the ice caps melt. That yacht just sitting there in the marina.
I've made a huge mistake. Let's talk about the lodge at length right now, please.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's.
And
all right,
we're moving
Lodge,
into the second review of this show, The Lodge.
Hammer's greatest mistake, The Lodge.
Oh, Bob.
No. The Lodge.
It's fine. We've talked about it plenty. Thank you for calling, Logan. Good to hear from you as always. Again, if you want to call and leave a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out there for next week?
When you make an omelet, do you break a few eggers?
Which period piece would you like to see Eggers take on and add in like the kind of mysticism of the time?
2000. Make a movie about Y2K.
Oh, my lord.
Eggers 2000.
He said any time period except this one.
He could do a Blair Witch remake.
Sure could. Like
that would sound terrible.
Origin story.
Yeah,
it sure does. But, he kind of did that.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd be down to see him do something similar to that Overlord movie we talked about, where it's like World War II, but like all the crazy experiments were taken at face value and as if they were successful to a degree anyways. I think that could be kind of interesting.
I think it'd be cool.
I kind of want to see a mummy movie.
Ooh, yeah.
I think it'd be cool if
Egyptian.
he did something Victorian when all the occult stuff was super popular and all the rich people were doing seances.
Oh,
and
shit. Yeah, like maybe like a birth of mysticism, even in America. Like what's that fucker's name?
Aleister
The
Crowley.
most evil man. Aleister Crowley.
There you go.
Or
I wanted to
he
say
could
Anton
even do
LaVey. That is not right.
The fall off when Houdini started debunking all of it and do one about Houdini or his wife.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good
Now
shit.
we're talking.
Yeah.
That's cool, yeah. Or even like some like voodoo shit. He could go to the like I don't know, Haitian, like
Haitian voodoo, Haitian zombies.
That'd be pretty cool.
Fuck off. Yeah, give me that.
So maybe he could do like a pirate period piece where they like maybe crash land in like Haiti at the time or something. And
Shut the fuck up.
Hey, your skin is hanging off your bones.
Yeah. That's one thing I do not want to see him tackle is some kind of alien shit.
I don't know. Roswell might be cool.
A brand new Eggers suit, if you will.
Eggers. Yeah.
All that sounds great. Solid prompts. If
We're
you
not
guys,
hosting an intergalactic Eggers here.
an intercanational Keggers.
He could also keep with kind of the Victorian style too, but like do like a thing in India, like a dark jungle book style or something.
Jack the Ripper.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Damn.
He can do a lot of things. Give this man lots of money.
Yeah. He's got the endless wealth of all of human history to draw from. So I think he made a wise decision.
Yeah. He's got a lot to work with. If you guys have any prompts you want to throw Eggers' way, we know him personally, so please call and leave a voicemail at 904-638-3231. We'll pass him along. That's going to do it for us this week here at Straight Chilling. Again, big thanks to Matt for sitting in with us, man.
Awesome, yeah. If y'all liked the weird shit I was saying, you should come check out my podcast called Swords and Stereo. Yeah. It's this, but we talk about swords instead of movies.
Hell yeah. Also,
and it's definitely more researched.
True. You can also teach people how to swing swords if they are.
If they're in the Jacksonville area, come over to Bold City Longsword. We're in Murray Hill. It's right off of I-10.
Hell yeah. Love it. Thanks again, man, for sitting in. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. We're talking about another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by the one, the only Hydraberg. The movie is Young Frankenstein from 1974.
Ooh. Hail Hydraberg.
Hail Hydraberg. Slam your eyeballs into the Young Frankenstein. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling. On Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Don't forget about our Joe Bob watch party this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Hey, your skin is hanging off your bones.